ago a little series that I'm calling Next Level Businesses, and, you know, play on words on Level Up, which is my consulting practice, but also it is about highlighting some of the amazing, awesome small businesses that I'm coming across on this journey. And Jo, whilst I sort of knew Jo a little bit before we got started, but to see Jo's business come to life and to hear all about it. So just since it was started back in 2019, I thought Jo's got to be one of my next level businesses. And so Jo was featured on all the socials a couple of weeks ago now, and you're our first webinar, Jo, talking about how to set your business up to outsource. And I think it's a good place to start. More about outsourcing. So, and I think it's really helpful, and you're going to tell us all about it in a minute. So that's sort of what the Next Level Businesses series is all about. If you're having a great time today, next cab off the rank is the wonderful Karen that you can see as well. Just going to talk about branding. We've got videography. Ben, if you want to do one, you're more than welcome, but we're going to have a whole series of things that happen every 2 weeks. So this is number one. You can say you were here first. Couple of quick housekeeping, which we've kind of already talked about already, but everyone is on mute. Thank you. Questions, use the chat function below in Zoom. So if you go down the bottom, let me just check there is one. Yes, we do have a chat function. Type your questions in and I'll address them at the end. We'll have about 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A with Jo. We'll be sending out the recording. So if you don't want to take any notes, that's cool. You will get a copy of this. And that's it. So I might start by introducing Jo, unless anyone has a burning question right now. No? Happy? All right, let's go. So the wonderful Jo, I've sort of said your name 20 times already, Jo, but the wonderful Jo Draper, before starting Live Virtually, which Jo did start in 2019, I guess, would it be fair to say, Jo, that you were a...
Sorry, I've locked my husband out. Hang on.
Oh, I'll talk about you. You go let him in. So Jo started her working life as a project manager, and she's a little bit of an extraordinaire when it comes to that sort of thing. And when Jo started Live Virtually, whilst it is, you know, your one-stop virtual assistant shop, Jo really does specialize in events and project management and making sure everything runs smoothly and efficiently. And we now know that Jo also does clearing of inboxes in G Suite as well. Wonderful things that are added to the service. Welcome, Mark. I can see you there. I'm just introducing our guest speaker for today, which is Jo. So what else can I say about Jo? Jo really, I guess you can talk about this more, Jo, but one of Jo's favourite things to do is presentation material. As small business owners, in fact, I've seen this in corporate many, many times. Every business is guilty of this. They don't do great PowerPoint slides. They don't do great events. They read off the page, the palm cards. Jo will sort all of that out for you. It's all part of the event and project management parcel that Jo does offer at Live Virtually. So that's a little bit about Jo. Jo, did you want to add in a couple of other little things before we kick off with the questions?
Yeah, sorry about that. I left my keys in the door and my husband couldn't get in. He's like banging on the door. Sorry about that. So I'm a bit, yeah, here we go. Now he's just come and look at me like, coffee please, thank you. Whoops. See, that's what happens when you do live. I am also I'm very big on mindfulness around my business. So that's one thing that if you follow me on any of my socials, I'm a big person around mindfulness and looking after ourselves first. Because I think that's the most important thing in business, because if we don't look after ourselves, then nobody else is going to look after us. So that's a big part of what I do as well. So the difference with me is I live my client's vision. So I love to know what the vision is of all of my clients, and the experience for them is that they are a VIP. So I had a comment last week saying that, you know, we would never know that you don't only work for us. So, you know, and I think that says a big part of you is because you manage people well. Like I could have 10 to 12 clients at any one time, and to know that that's how they feel about my experience, that makes me happy, because, you know, at the end of the day, we want to look after all of our clients, and if we can make them feel like that, happy Jo.
Happy Jo, happy everyone. And I forgot to mention as well, so we're just about to get started with the questions, but Jo's about to launch a course which is called Outsource Like a Pro. Hello, Cara. If you can go on mute, that would be awesome. Thank you. So yes, Jo's about to launch a course called Outsource Like a Pro, which is why setting businesses up to outsource is, I guess at the moment, your pet topic, Jo, which is what brings us here today. So I think we should get straight into it. There are 3 questions that Jo's going to chat about, and then we'll open up to Q&A. Reminder, if you do have some questions, chuck them in the chat function and I'll address them at the end. Otherwise, I'll open the floor afterwards. So, Jo, the first question I have for you is, there's a lot of talk out there about a virtual assistant. What exactly are they, and how does anyone actually find one?
A virtual assistant, it's a massive scope. So it can be anything from an admin assistant, a bookkeeper. It can be somebody like me who looks after courses and events, email funnels, social media management. So it's basically somebody who works normally virtually, although some of them do work in offices with a couple of their clients. I know there's a couple of ladies in my groups that do work in offices, but normally a person that is working remotely and is a subcontractor. So we have, for me personally, I have my own insurance. I've got public liability and professional indemnity insurance. I've got Queensland Police Check. If I was to work with children, I would have a blue card. So I have my own service agreement. If I were to use a subcontractor to help me, I'd have a subcontractor agreement. I invoice, I pay my own taxes, pay my own super. And so, yeah, basically, as if you were booking a tradie. So when you work with a tradie, you expect a tradie to have all of those things. But I think people don't realize that people like me exist. And I think more recently, in the last few months at least, we've gotten used to people working remotely. But there's a lady that I found out about, and apparently she started off called Clayton's Secretary, and it was like 30 years ago, and she was the very first, as far as we know, the very first virtual assistant. So it's actually been around for 30 years. And the lady who trained me, she'd been doing it for 20 years. You know, and I think it's a lot of the times it's people, I mean, for me, I got out of corporate. I'd been a legal secretary for years. I've worked in sales, manufacturing, travel. I even did hairdressing to move over here. So it's a lot of the times it's people moving away from workplaces for whatever reason. How do you find one? Well, we're like magical unicorns. So if you get a good one, keep hold with both hands and don't let them go. The best way of finding one for me would be word of mouth, because if you've worked with somebody, you know how that person works and you can recommend that person to somebody else. The way people find me, I've had Instagram. People have followed me on Instagram and seen what posts I've been putting out. One of my more recent clients followed me, and I reached out to her when I first started, but she'd already just taken on somebody. But she started following me on my socials, and I started writing about slides and presentations and events. And one of the things that drew her in was me saying, please, please, please don't read from your slides. And so her response was, oh my God, I do that. Like, I need this. Like, so she messaged me on Instagram and said, I need you. Like, this is what I do. Like, these are my slides. And I'd done a couple of her presentations or her courses. There were typos and, you know, and she was reading from her slides. So I've now got her on board, and I think the last slide deck I did for her, I won't repeat the whole email because there was a few swear words in there, but it was, oh my God, you nailed those slides. But that's the point of difference. So that is the one difference that you go, all right, well, there's a mediocre, they're okay, you can still use them. But that's the difference between there and there. So, and that's the difference in your business as well. And your brand as well, Karen, don't you think?
Yes, it's a really good point. And the way that I like to talk to my clients about, you know, whether or not outsourcing is the right option for them is specialize in what you love doing, what you're great at, and find really trusted, awesome people to do everything else. If that's presentation slides or event management or bookkeeping, bring in the pros, you know, get them to help you. They're going to do it quicker. It's actually, there's a perception that it's expensive, not overly expensive, and you will get time back to make more money doing what you do best. So it's sort of a win-win situation, and your to-do list looks a hell of a lot better, and you can knock off at 5 o'clock on Friday and have a weekend. So that's the benefit of having a great VA on your team. Thank you for that, Jo. Let's go to the second question. So say someone has decided that they are looking for a virtual assistant, and we talked before that a virtual assistant could be anyone. It could be any virtual part of your extended team, so marketers, branding people, event planners, anyone. So assistant probably doesn't do the word justice, but when you're looking to hire virtual team members, what sort of checks or how should you vet them?
I think most importantly, look for somebody who's insured, because it's your intellectual property. It's your logo, it's your passwords, if you hand the passwords out, although there are other options for passwords. But it's your business. This is your baby that you've grown, and you're handing intellectual property to somebody else that you probably don't know. So I think first and foremost, have that backup, because I don't know, say for example, they come to your office or you meet them in the coffee shop and they spill their coffee all over your laptop. Like, you know, it's probably not going to happen, but it's one of those reasons why we have insurance. If you send me a document and I accidentally delete it and that took you 10, 15, 20 hours to do, the reassurance is there that you've got some comeback. I think for finding somebody, it has to be somebody that you can relate to, because you know, it's like if you hired somebody in an office, if you went to hire somebody, what would you look for? What qualities would you look for? Would you look for somebody who's a fast typist, or would you look for somebody who's accurate typing? I mean, for me, I would look for the accuracy rather than the fast typing. Even not going to brag, really. I am going to brag, actually. 110 words a minute with about 90% accuracy. I think at one point I was 120 with 99% accuracy, but because I don't type non-stop anymore, it's gone down a little bit. But I think qualities for you to look for is the qualities you would look for in a person. So what sort of person are you? Then that's the sort of person that you're going to look for in somebody that's going to work with you. If you go on a phone call and it's, you know, you're sitting there on the Zoom call and there's no conversation, are you really going to work with that person? Whereas if you just chat like you've known each other forever, I think that's what we did the first time we met, Jasmine. It was like, I don't think we shut up for an hour. So, you know, those are the sorts of qualities. So whatever qualities you look for in a friend or in a colleague, those are the sorts of things that you're going to look for in a VA, and not necessarily skills can be taught. Like, you know, you can learn most things, or most people can. But I think for me, the most important thing is, can I get on with this person? Can I work with this person? Do I know them? Do I know them, or does somebody else know them? Do I like them? And do I trust them? So get to know that person through their socials, follow them. You know, do they engage in groups? Like, have they just popped up? I mean, there's so many ways you can stalk people these days without stalking, but seriously, if you're going to be looking at taking somebody on, look at them and what are they putting out. I saw one of the questions came up from Helena asking, do I have minimum hours? I don't, but some people do, and I've seen some people say, I do a minimum of 5 hours, or I do a minimum of X amount. I don't, because if I work with somebody and they give me half an hour this week and 10 hours next week, then I just have to juggle a little bit more. What else? Common requests for VA assistance. There's a lot of requests for social media. I keep away from that because there's so many people that do social media. I do my own. I think with social media, I think it's, for me, it's quite a personal thing, as in, like, I write all my copy, because for me, I like to speak to the person that I want to attract. So my person is a course creator and a coach. So not necessarily somebody running events, but it could be somebody who does courses or webinars or masterclasses. So those are the sorts of people. So that's who I speak to. I'm also a mentor for new VAs. So also I have information on there to interact with other VAs or new and upcoming. So I might reach out to somebody if somebody's new and send them a message. So the most common things for me, I don't really have anything that's like common. I mean, I do slides, graphics, event support. I use Humanitics as a ticketing site, and I am actually one of their ambassadors. I don't get money for them. It just means that my money for charity goes on a little bit more. I'm a massive part of the B Corp community, so which is Businesses for Good, and I also do pledge 1%. So I give 1% of my time to a charity of my choice. So I'm involved in one that's rejuvenating the earth at the moment. And Ben, would you say personal collection?
Jo, I might just pause you there for a second.
Go on then.
Get to Q&A at the end, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Talked about all these wonderful things. So Ben, hold that thought. We will get to you. So just sort of to summarize, how do you find the right VA for you? So social media is a great, I guess, breeding ground for finding these people. There are lots of groups out there. I think, I don't know about yourself, and I know Cara is in this trade as well, but I see requests for virtual assistant help all the time. Every single day there are people asking for it. So there's plenty of people out there. There are plenty of people offshore as well, which offer different options and different costing options. So there's lots out there. But Jo, would you recommend, and I think you kind of said this before, but interview the person like you're going to employ them, like they're one of your staff. So do Zooms, meet up face-to-face, whatever it works, but just make sure they've got the credentials, they've got the right vibe, you can get along with them in that sort of trusted advisor relationship. Is that what you would recommend doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I always have a Zoom chat with whoever I work with. And that's as much for me as it is for them. Because if somebody doesn't fit with my values, then I'm not going to work with them. And you know, and I think when you first start, you probably do take on all of the clients because you think that, you know, I need the work, or, you know, I need to pay bills or whatever. But I think down the track, once you've decided, yes, I'm going to work in this market and with these people, niching down and niching very specifically down. So, you know, having that person in mind is important from a VA point of view, but also from a business point of view, because that person's going to grow with your business. So they've got to be an important and integral part of your team, because, you know, you could be working together for the next 5 to 10 years, depending on the growth of your business. So to trust that person with your project management. So, you know, somebody like, for instance, I would use ClickUp or Asana or Trello to set people up. So you're working with that together. You've got to ensure that that person that you're working with, one, understands the system, and if they don't understand, can you train that person? So one of the other things that I would suggest is having a training Zoom. So the 2 ways of doing it. So one of them is, if you're doing a task, you can set up a system called Loom, which is a free video thing, or you can use Zoom and video yourself doing something, doing that task. So share your screen and explain what you're doing while recording it, and then you can pass those off. I like to have a Zoom and have them show me and tell me what they're doing. So it's personal preference, but it's not just how you learn, but it's how you teach. Most people don't even know what their workflows are, and they're the most important. So having a simple workflow, for an example, would be writing a social media post. So, you know, how do you write a social media post? So writing the actual post, you would have a title, a lead, the body, and a call to action, for an example. And then doing your actual post would be something like, you design your image in Canva, you download the image, you upload the image to a social media platform, or I use Hootsuite, so I upload mine to Hootsuite, you schedule it for the day it's going to be on. I put it into my Trello board, I put a copy of the image into the Trello board, and then when it's published, it's ticked off. So that's just a simple workflow or process, or, you know, years ago we used to call them SOPs, or standard operating procedures or standard operating practices, but a workflow of your tasks. So break down and go granular, like every single step, because you don't know who you're going to be working with, and not everybody learns in the same way and as quick as you do.
So you're touching on my third and final question, Jo, which I love. Beautiful segue. I'd like to say we planned it, but we didn't. And that is, so you've decided, yes, I need more hours in my day. I need this trusted human. I have found them. I have interviewed them. They are perfect. What do I do next? So you talked about workflows. I guess the step before is figuring out all the things you could outsource to someone. Any advice on how you decide what things are, I'm going to make up a word, outsourceable?
Yeah, absolutely. I normally say to people, make a list of what you do in a week. Do it over a couple of weeks if you want. Those things that take you time, that you don't love, those are certain things. It could be something that you do love doing, but it's taking you a massive amount of time. Bear in mind, you know, like a slide deck, for example, a 20-page slide deck could take somebody 5 or 6 hours because of the design, and you don't know what to put in it and stuff. Whereas I could probably do it in 2 or less. So, you know, and the other thing I look at is, what is your time worth? So an example would be, say a concreter. He charges $100 an hour, and he, you know, his zone of genius is being a concreter. It's not doing his quotes, it's not phoning his clients, it's not getting his invoices paid, it's not doing all these other things. So he would probably outsource some of those things to somebody, say, you know, between, if you say $50 an hour, but if you say he does 10 hours of work per week on his admin, that's $1,000. So instead of that $1,000, that $1,000 can then be spent doing what he does best, meaning he gets another $1,000. Yes, he's got to spend $500, but the person doing it is not going to take the 10 hours that he was taking. So it's the value to the customer far, far, far outweighs the cost. So I think it's always looking at your hourly rate as well. Like, you know, coaches, for example, a coach could be charging $300 to $500 an hour. So, you know, how much is that time worth? Is it worth your kids? Is it worth your family? Is it worth your holidays? Is it, you know, is it worth knocking off at 5 o'clock on a Friday and having a beer or a wine or a cocktail? You know, those are the things, like, how much is it worth to you? And that's very personal.
Yes, Jo, the answer is always yes. It is
yes.
5 o'clock for a cocktail or a beer. Beautiful. So the list, that's a great start. Then the workflows, is there anything that comes sort of next, or do you just sort of get started with that person?
Yeah, look, if you've never worked with somebody before and it's your first time at outsourcing, outsource one thing. Like, just try one thing. So that might be managing your emails. It might be, I don't know, oh, lost my train of thought, doing your database entry or something. It could be anything, but yeah, just start with one thing, get to know the person, get to know how that person works, and then you can outsource more. So I'd started off with this lady that I said to you about. I started off with her slides, and now I've done her workbooks, and now I'm doing her email funnels. So, you know, you start off with one thing and then you build up to everything else. And she sends me videos all the time of new stuff. So she uses Kartra, and I hadn't used it before. So she just sends me little videos and shows me what she needs to do. So, and then I keep those videos and I can open them while I'm doing it for a couple of times, and then you've done it. So yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful advice. They were all of my questions. I think we'll now go to the chat function. So reminder, if anyone has any questions, you've still got time to put them in, because Ben's gone hard with 2 questions, which will take some time for us to answer. So the first one from Ben, Ben asks, would you say a personal connection and insurance is more important than a strong contractual agreement and guarantees?
That's a really, really good question. I would say they were equally as important, because if you, for your peace of mind, Ben, I would probably be going, do you have a service agreement? Like, the biggest thing for me, having come from a legal background, my biggest thing is confidentiality. So that's a massive, massive trust thing. And that's the biggest thing for a lot of people, is to say, how do I know that I can trust you with X, Y, Z? And I have had clients that have been burned by other people stealing their branding or their course information. So for a lot of people, the confidentiality or the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, is huge. So yeah, definitely equally as important as the insurance. The insurance covers both of you. I mean, it covers me in case I do happen to spill that cup of coffee on somebody, or even my own stuff. But also it enables either party to get out of the contract. You might start working with somebody and you find that you're not compatible. And I actually did that last week. I used that and got out of something because it wasn't feeling right for me. So, and it's okay to do that. But if you don't have that agreement in place, how do you do that? How do you get out of it? So, yeah, that's a really good question. But you still should have that connection with somebody because, yeah, they're going to be working in your space and you want to be able to say good morning or hello or whatever. Yeah.
Otherwise, it feels very transactional, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah,
transaction.
yeah.
They're your new team. They're a team member. So beautiful. All right. Next from Ben, and it's probably one we've all been thinking, but Ben was brave enough to ask it, which is, what's the advantage of hiring a local or Australian-based VA over maybe some of the cheaper options overseas? Obviously, there's a big market for that in places like the Philippines.
Yeah.
What are the advantages of picking someone onshore?
Onshore is obviously in the same time zone or within a couple of hours of you. We understand the nuances of the language. And even me as an English person, I understand the Aussie. And, you know, even some of the slang words that we say. Like, you know, when I first got over here and somebody said to me, I'm flat out like a lizard drinking, I was like, the hell is that? What do you mean? But, you know, like I understand the concept of it. I think the other thing is probably with the insurance as well. And how do you know what that person can do? And I know that's the same for anybody, but like mine, for example, I'm a certified VA Institute. So I did my training with the VA Institute, and they run a little agency called Find a VA. So all of the VAs within there are fully certified. So they've all done some sort of training, they all have agreements in place, they all have insurance in place. So it's things like that. So there are a few agencies within Australia. There are, I think I've seen a few agencies that look after Philippines. Personally, I have worked with a team in the Philippines. I was a supervisor in a call center for a travel team. So I have personally had knowledge. It was very hard to train the people that we worked with, like extremely hard. It was, you know, normally you would probably work with somebody for an hour and know that that person gets it. But this went on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they ended up losing a lot of money in not things that weren't booked or things that weren't booked properly. So I think hiring from overseas has its disadvantages as well as the advantages of the lower cost, of course.
Beautiful. Ben, did that answer all of your questions adequately, or would you like to add anything else?
That was cool. It was good to hear those perspectives on the two questions.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, there aren't any other questions in the chat, but I'll open up the floor. You can feel welcome to go off mute. But did anyone else have any other questions that you had for Jo on the topic of outsourcing some of your work in your business? Crickets.
Don't all shout at once. Come on, I'm not scary.
Does anybody have a VA or outsources some of their work already?
Yeah, I do. I've got assistants in the Philippines, and
Oh yeah.
as you say, Jo, it is so difficult to get them to do the work to the standard that you require. We've got web developers in India, we've got VA assistants in the Philippines, and unless you have processes and procedures for them to follow to the note, and also to go back over the work that they've done and make sure it's been done to the standard you've asked of them, it's very difficult to ensure that quality. So I completely agree. It would be much more beneficial sometimes to outsource the work locally, because it would save us time on the development, it would save us time on the checking of it all. We get a lot of good out of them. We know the VAs we've got working for us, we've had for quite a while now. So they understand the processes and procedures. We've spent the time and the money essentially to train them. But I know it would have been a much quicker process to outsource, to employ people locally, or outsource the work locally as well.
Yeah, it's something I can relate to a bit as well, having spent many years working in management in Telstra's call centres, and we all know what the training's like for Telstra call centre staff. Anyway, any other questions from the floor? Cara's wanting a VA, love it. Someone jumped in there.
I started after watching your video on outsourcing a couple of weeks ago. I was sort of plodding along doing the same thing and wearing about 20 different hats myself, trying to get the business running and working and flowing. And after watching your video, I sort of changed direction a little bit, thinking, well, if I can outsource one thing, why can't I outsource most things and have a little thing running in the background that's working for me when I don't feel like working at all. So as a very first test run, we actually asked my daughter, who's looking for a job at McDonald's, who's been unsuccessful for a couple of weeks now. I'm sure COVID has something to do with that. But I asked her if she wanted to help, and she's, I must say, a 14-year-old schoolgirl caught on to exactly what I needed her to do. It's a simple task like loading photos to a website with keywords and what have you. But she caught on instantly, and every Tuesday she spends a couple of hours loading images onto a website, because it's a massive free database that I'm building. And I realized she has only got so much time, so I think I'm gonna go find someone on a more permanent basis. It's quite a task when you've got these tens of thousands of things that you need to do, and you know exactly how to do it. But like you said, it just absolutely clicked for me when you said, what is your time worth? And it's not data capturing worth. So
absolutely now. That's awesome. That's so good to hear. And I saw that Cara's looking for a VA as well for herself, and she works as a VA, so that's awesome. Well done, Cara.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, we are in the 9 minutes now, so I'll open up. Does anyone else have any other thoughts or comments? You're welcome to say them. Going, gone. Time for school pickup. Time for toilet.
Did you have a question, Paula?
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, mine was just going to be a quick one, because a lot of the feedback I get from people who are looking into getting VAs is building that confidence of the quality of work that they get, and they always connect back to effort recording. So can they track the time that these people are doing to build that confidence? I have both sides of the argument, I suppose, in my viewpoint. Where do you sit in relation to that?
I do track my time. I track with Clockify at the moment, although I'm getting somebody to actually help me with my systems and processes. So I'm actually outsourcing my stuff as well. But yeah, I use Clockify, and I'll provide a report to my clients. I bill to the minute. There are people out there that bill to 15 minutes. Personally, I don't agree with that, because 15 minutes over 3 months or 1 year is that could be a hell of a lot of time that is wasted for you not charging to that minute. So that's mine, and I couldn't do it. Like, I'm an ethical person, and so I charge to you know, my husband's always saying to me, oh my god, but you're so fast. Yeah, but that's a point of difference. That's, you know, and that's why people hire me, because I am fast. And you know, that slide deck or that graphic takes me not very long. And then yeah, and time versus packages, yeah, again, it depends. Look, I have been working on a package to put together, and I think with the packages has to be the value. So what is the value to you? So the one that I'm putting together basically is all your socials. So it's about an event. It's putting the event onto Humanitics, it's putting the event on all the socials, and creating banners for all of those as well, creating the copy, and then putting together slide decks and a workbook and a checklist and your time. So the value for somebody for doing that is probably thousands of dollars. But the cost for doing that, for example, is the one I'm putting together is $650. So, you know, like that's, but that's for a massive, you know, package of stuff. But yeah, it just depends. If I did that on an hourly rate, it would probably turn out to be more than that. But yeah, you know, sometimes you do. So yeah, some people put packages together, or a package could be you pay for 10 hours. I've got that with a couple of my clients. They'll say, oh, can I hire you for 10 hours? So, you know, 10 hours is what I do. But I tell people when I am up to, say, 7 hours, and say, you know, like, just letting you know, I'm up to 7 hours. I'll keep going. I'll update you when I'm like 8.5 or 9. So it's just keeping people in the loop, because it's their money at the end of the day, and it's their work. So yeah, Ben, you had a recommendation.
Yeah, so I just wanted to jump in and just give an example of a way that I manage my time as well. I use Clockify the same way. I build to the minute. So, you know, you set up a project, and within those projects you record different descriptions for the jobs that you might be doing. But I also use Todoist, and Todoist has got a paid and a free version. And with the paid version, I actually, because we're managing teams remotely, we're managing teams in different companies, and so we all integrate on Todoist. I make it a point that if I'm working with the company, they've got to use Todoist basically, and we can all assign each other tasks, and we can set timers in Clockify straight from the task in Todoist. We actually export. Todoist on the computers, you can have it on your phone, but on the computers it runs through a web browser. You can save that extension as an extension on your desktop, and it opens it as if it's an app. We just have Todoist running all day long. We'll be, you know, sorting by the jobs that are the highest priority that are assigned to me. I can check up on jobs that are assigned to other people, and the most important thing is we can all clock our time against those tasks in Clockify. So you've got full accountability for the time that you're spending on jobs, and you know, it gives you the time to analyze the time spent on tasks, so you're better able to quote and predict for the next time that you have a similar task.
Awesome. Have you heard of ClickUp, Ben?
ClickUp.
ClickUp. ClickUp. That might be.
I forgot I was muted for a second. No, I haven't actually, no.
Okay, have a look at ClickUp, because that would give you a one-stop shop instead of the 2.
I'm on it. I'm looking at it.
Right. That value adding left, right, and center.
There you go.
Very much, Jo Draper. If you haven't already, check out Jo's website, livevirtually.com.au. Jo, is that correct? Yep. Yes. On all the socials as well. But yes, of course, if you any other questions beyond today, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, and I'm going to put you on the spot, Jo, and say you can reach out to Jo as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But thank you, everyone. We are at time now. Thank you so much for joining this very first webinar. You pioneers, you. This has been a lot of fun. They will be holding these webinars every 2 weeks, so keep an eye out on the Level Up page or wherever I'm spamming you on social media, but there's lots coming up. So the next one is happening on Monday the 24th. That's actually about incorporating video into your marketing strategy. So that's a new one we've just added on, and that's with Rachel, who runs That Camera Girl. And then after that, on the 7th of September, you've got the wonderful Karen sitting right here, who is a graphic designer, photographer, illustrator, all these wonderful things, and she's a branding mastermind. So if you would like to come along to Branding 101 on the 7th of September, register as well. We've already got a fair few registrations there, Karen, so I hope you're working on your presentation.
Yes. Oh, yes.
I love it. But
Preparation.
yeah, sincere thank you, Jo, for being the guinea pig and just absolutely smashing it. Thank you for teaching us all about outsourcing. And I wish for you all a wonderful afternoon and a productive week. See you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.